Carlson. I am the principal engineer for the state of California for Cloudflare. My primary responsibilities are the state agencies and ca.gov, but I also support higher education. That's one of the reasons why I'm here, is that a lot of my higher education customers encourage me to come here. But essentially I'm an engineer, so customer facing, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the future of AI, the changing landscape, and then also kind of how AI is changing the way that security needs to be kind of approached on your websites and everything else like that, right? So Randy is our sales rep, so there's some contact information here if you want to take a picture of that. I can also send this presentation out to anybody who wants it. Yep.
Okay, if we post it on the website?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. No problem. No problem posting this. No problem sharing any of the content.
Great.
So, okay. So, let's see here. What are we going to cover today? So, why Cloudflare? You know, what is Cloudflare? I always like to start out by going through that, since a lot of people don't know necessarily what we do. So a lot of people have a really good idea of what we do, but I also find it really interesting and curious to hear what other people think of what we do. What do we do on a day-to-day basis? Kind of what are we fighting out on the internet? How the consumption landscape is changing, which I think really pertains to a lot of you guys. So you guys build websites and support websites, and how is the world of the internet changing, and what do we see since we have such a unique perspective on it? What are we doing about some of the things that are happening? And then I'll leave you with a few kind of websites and things to go to. We are known for being very transparent, so we have a couple websites that we publish that are available for everyone to kind of look at. Most of the time people are unaware that it's there, so I'll follow up at the end with these websites so you guys can go browse our telemetry data, our threat intelligence, and everything else like that. It's open to the public, right? So why Cloudflare? Like I said, I like to ask this question to people. So how many of you are familiar with Cloudflare? And I'm curious to hear what you think we do. Yeah, go ahead.
We're using firewall services,
Uh-huh.
and my brain isn't working. The thing that replaces CAPTCHA. It's better than CAPTCHA.
Yeah, so it's what we call our managed challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. That's a great answer.
Definitely DNS management.
DNS, okay, yep, DNS, full service DNS. Anyone else? No? Yeah.
Caching.
Caching, there you go, caching. I think it's really interesting to kind of give you guys an idea of where we came from and why we started, because that answers kind of a lot of questions about why we do what we do, right? Originally, our founders had one single question, and that was, if everybody's moving everything to the cloud, who's moving a firewall to the cloud? That was their first question, right? So servers, storage, all that stuff seems intuitive, right? But who's moving actual firewalls to the cloud, and is that even possible? And so they made the decision that it was possible, but in order to make that work, it had to perform. That was the biggest issue, because every single person said, well, if you throw a firewall out on the internet, it's going to be really slow, right? Because you're going to pump traffic through it, and there's going to be latency and everything else like that. So in order to get it to work, they had to improve latency, they had to improve performance, they had to use caching, they had to build a massive number of data centers. And the cool thing about what happened was, in our process of building a completely cloud-based firewall, we made everybody's traffic faster, so we became known as a CDN for caching, for CAPTCHAs, for everything else like that. But ultimately, it was this singular goal, and that was to be a security company, and that is put a firewall out, and everything else just kind of came along with it, right? So we are known as being the world's fastest DNS. That literally was just to make sure that performance of the firewall is up to snuff. Right, so these are all kind of auxiliary things that happen. And it's kind of one of the cool things about what we do is That's kind of how we develop products. We don't go out and say to customers, hey, we think you need this thing, right? We think that's the worst thing that we could possibly do. What we do is we see what customers, what their traffic is, what they're dealing with, and then we provide visibility for that. And then the second step always is that visibility they want to turn that into how do we do something about this, right? So our products are always very organically developed. Every single product that we have came from visibility, like an improvement on our algorithm. All of a sudden we saw all this traffic we never saw before. Hey customer, what do you think about this? Oh, we think it's great, but how do we stop it? And then the product comes along with that, right? So I feel like we always come from the right place as far as how we generate traffic and how we protect people is all based on what actual real requirements from customers are, right? So what has this kind of led to? We block 190 billion daily threats. 95% of the world's internet's within 50 milliseconds of us. We have a 100% uptime SLA, and almost 30% of the web travels across our network, right? So ultimately what we've become is this massive network. And that's one of the things that I like to impart on people is we have over 600 data centers, this massive network that we ingest customer traffic onto, right? So you transport across our network, and then you layer services on top of that network, so the platform has become this massive network, right? And that puts us in a really, really kind of meaningful position, a unique situation, right? Because our customers travel across our network and layer services on top of it. We have the kind of telemetry data, the kind of information, et cetera, that no one else has, right? Just think to yourself, if you've got a Cisco firewall, how are they getting any sort of information about telemetry, where things are coming from, where they're going to, et cetera? They don't. They have to buy it from someone else, or they have to partner with someone else to get it. Inherently, we see it, and so we have a unique kind of position based on what we set out to do, right? How big are we? I do like to throw this out here. I know it's probably kind of hard to see, but we are roughly twice the size of Google and Amazon. So essentially everybody thinks that Google and Amazon are the biggest networks out there or the biggest providers out there, but we're actually almost twice the size. And we usually are number one. We lose number one occasionally depending on where you're at, but generally we are the fastest, largest network out there, right? So not a lot of people know that, but that's just because we do everything in every data center, and the way we populate data centers, we do about 35 a year. So we are literally rolling them out as fast as we possibly can. The goal is to get over 60% of the internet by 2027 is kind of the goal, right? So that's what we're shooting for. So let me kind of tell you a little bit about what we fight on a day-to-day basis. So just in 2025 so far, we've blocked 20.5 million DDoS attacks. That's an over 100% increase over the whole year of 2024, and that's just 2025. So we also count DDoS a lot differently than a lot of other people do. Because we have the telemetry data that we have the visibility to identify whether or not these DDoS attacks are unique, right? So we can tell if something is truly original or if something has just been slightly modified in order to do kind of the same thing but just look differently, right? So a lot of this from Q1 of 25 also spilled into Q2. This chart I like to show people because this talk is about AI. If you look at the unique attacks that have happened, they don't seem to be changing a ton, but that's because we are filtering out these differences based on AI. If we did not, and that's what this last column is, this last column in Q2 of 2024, this is kind of an old slide, but there were 17.2 attacks, 7.2 million attacks, but only 1.8 million unique ones, right? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to filter out what is unique and what is actually just a minor modification. But this is 100% AI, right? So the ability to morph these attacks and change them is no longer reliant on a human. It is reliant on, algorithms, etc., to modify these attacks, change them slightly, and then relaunch them in a very automated way, right? So everything's automated now.
Are questions in the middle allowed?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I don't actually quite get what's going on. So
Good.
if you have a unique DDoS attack,
Yeah.
then you've got 10,000 computers that are attacking the destination.
No, I'm not talking about a unique instance. I'm talking about a unique methodology.
Okay, fair. But,
Right.
But okay, so let's then switch to methodology.
Yeah.
And so, what the heck is being there? What's changing between attacks?
So there.
The order that the 10,000 hits?
Yeah, the order, the telemetry, like where it's coming from, like the different types of things it's going after. Like, is this a layer 4 attack? Is this a layer 3 attack? Is this a layer 7 attack? Like the variation and the movement of different. Then also, like I think we talked a little bit earlier, the source of the attacks as far as, is this cloud infrastructure? Is this IoT devices? Is this, right? They often will switch from different platforms of infrastructure using the same methodology, but then just switch infrastructure platform sources, right? So all these things, another company would register as unique attacks and kind of report on, those metrics. We have the visibility because we see end-to-end communication, right? Because of our edge position, we're able to see where it comes from and where it's going to, and that those players are actually the same players, and they just have more and better capabilities over time.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So this is a DDoS attack. I realize the slide metrics are a little bit different. This one's in billion packets, and the other ones are terabits per second. So I apologize for that. But this was March of last year, 4.8 billion packets. And this was the largest in history at that time, in March of last year, right? This is August of last year, so between March and August, right, 6.5 terabits per second, this was the largest in history. So mainly what I'm trying to point out here is the time frame between these attacks, right? So from March to August were the two largest attacks in history, right? What I want to point out now is that in September was 7.3 terabits per second, right? So it went from August 6.5 to September 7.3, and then what happened? Like 2 weeks later, 11.5, and then today, or actually technically yesterday, 22.2. Okay, so the pace at which this is happening is being drastically accelerated by AI, right? So the ability to scale resources in an automated way, the ability to move them, the ability to bring them up and tear them down, completely in an automated fashion there's more and more players with more and more capability constantly being added into the mix, right? And so it's happening so fast we're not able, like we talked earlier, we aren't able to actually do the write-ups on these and get these out to people to try to tell them. The 11.5 we still haven't written up yet. We're still pushing that through legal, etc. 22.2, I told the guys today, like, hey, we need to get the 11 terabit one documented and out to the public so that we can hit this one and start documenting it as well. Yeah.
Would you mind maybe zooming in and just explaining the chart? It's hard for me to interpret.
What's it? Oh, I don't.
What is this mean?
Oh, it's just it's 22.2 terabits per second. So the left column is 22. Is the terabits per second, and then the bottom row is the time, right? So, so what this is showing is that it was only 40 seconds long. This DDoS attack. There's a lot to be said for that, though, right? So why would an attack like this only be 40 seconds long?
Because you killed him.
Well, not only that, we did kill it, but why else would it only be 40 seconds long? Because it's not the real attack.
It's a probing.
It's a probing.
Huh.
Right.
This is one source doing this.
No. This is over 40,000 different IPs. And
Coordinated.
yeah, coordinated. Yes, absolutely coordinated.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely coordinated.
Huh.
So what I also want to point out is, and I talked to several people earlier too. I talked to you. I keep pointing to you because we talked a lot today.
Yeah.
But what's the realistic expectation of your ISP being able to block an attack like this? Does anybody know what kind of? I'm intimately aware of the hardware that sits behind ISPs. I compete against them, so I know kind of what their structure is and how they stack their servers and what they pump through as far as their scrubbing centers, etc. So what's the theoretical limit of an ISP's, and I'm talking like AT&T because I know intimately what AT&T uses. Anybody have any idea how many terabits? How many megabits? 1 terabit. And they've only ever theoretically tested up to 500 megabits. So this is, becoming a reality that people can't rely on their ISP to take care of this problem anymore. They're going to have to look at, and even CISA, without taking any sort of favoritism towards vendors, has said really clearly, if you're not using some sort of distributed network-based, edge-based mitigation system to thwart this, you'll never stop it. You won't be able to, right? And so you're going to see all the other vendors kind of scramble to kind of match our approach over time. Here's the problem. We spent 15 years building the world's fastest, largest network. How long do you think it's going to take them to build a network of the same kind of scale and capability? It may not be 15 years. I mean, we all know Microsoft has more money than anyone, right? But it's going to take some time, right? So it's very, very interesting. I wanted to kind of go over our mission really quick just to kind of move on. Our mission publicly is to build a better internet, right? So what would the internet be like if we had known it would be used for what it's being used today? That's kind of what we want to do. It needs to be fast, reliable, secure, all built in from the network side. So we're essentially building a parallel internet. That's what we really want to do, right? But internally, like, I'll be honest with you, this is what we say our mission is on the inside. And I'm kind of exposing this to you guys, right? We have to now be the best at determining what is human and what is not. And every single product that we have, every single thing that we do, unfortunately, is going to be centered around this one thing that we have to do better than anyone else, right? And that's just the reality of how things are, right? So what's the message on this? We have to fight AI with AI, right? There's no way humans can do this. Hardware can't handle it. It can't be scaled fast enough. Humans can't make the changes fast enough. It's just not possible. I have customers on a daily basis that come to me and say, we have a script that populates bad IP addresses, and we're running that script. And I ask them, how's that going for you? Just honestly, like, do you get any sleep? Because it's literally impossible for you to do that anymore. As smart as you can be, like, it just isn't possible without the telemetry data and the visibility, right? We've spent the last 15 years building on the back of the internet. The internet is the reason we exist, so we have to make sure the internet survives, and we want to give back to it. That's really what we're here for, right? And we have a network that is designed for security that is specifically built to prevent bad things from happening to customers. And that also puts us in a really unique position, and why I'm going to kind of transfer over to this second topic, the consumption internet, right, and how that is changing, right? So the consumption landscape is changing. I'm kind of getting through these slides pretty quickly so that I can take on questions, FYI, but you're free to ask questions if you want to. I also am prepared to kind of show you some of the actual tools that we have that are available if you want to see those. So if you want to see our AI analysis tools, if you want to see our AI blocking tools, I have those fired up so that we can kind of take a look at those. I wanted to at least be able to show you guys those too if you wanted to see them, right?
Yep, for sure.
So that's why I'm kind of clipping along. But absolutely raise your hand if you need to interrupt me. So I'm going to say a lot of what I'm going to say here is pretty publicly said by our founder, Matthew Prince. If you guys want to go listen to any podcasts that he has, he's very vocal about a lot of these statements. He does qualify a lot of these. I wouldn't be saying these things if it wasn't something that we already say pretty widely publicly, right? So you could see references to all this stuff. Everything wrong with the world is Google's fault. Okay? Now, let's kind of clarify that, right? Like, that's kind of a big statement. They were the first to tell us that traffic is the deity that we worship, right? And that turned into Google. Google turned into Facebook. Whether this is literal or not, right? Google beget Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? Like, Google started the chain, they started the process, they started the whole ball rolling, right? This is all built into what we call our attention economy. This whole thing that you need to click through links in order to get a cortisol response, right? This is all what was established early on by Google, right? Now, let's be clear, Google, I think we can all agree, is a net good for the world, like in what they did in growing the internet, et cetera, right? So I won't give them no credit for what they have done. But the reality is it all started by the things that they put in place, right? And what they put in place was 25 years ago, Google struck a deal where we can copy all your traffic, all your content, and we'll send you traffic. Right? So that was the deal. We're allowed to have everything that you have if we'll send you traffic. Right? So they actually had a meter on their webpage, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, which would actually time how fast you left Google, because they were proud of the fact, Sergey would always brag about how fast you left Google. We were referring you faster than anyone else off of this page, and that's how they built their business. Right? But 10 years ago, that drastically changed, right? Now they're trying to keep you. Now you've got what used to be called the featured snippet, which was the bar at the top of the page, which was suggestions on, your searches, etc. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. They have the sponsored list, right? So if you pay enough money for Google Ads, you'll get the sponsored header of every single search page, right? And then now what do we have? We've got this AI overview that is happening now at the top of every page. So you no longer need to actually scroll down past the AI overview to get your answer. Well, in 10 years, just as a reference, it is now 10 times harder to get somebody to click on a link after AI overview, and that's a fact. So we've been measuring this since this has happened. And it's actually, that's the good news, right? This is the good news, that it's 10 times harder. It's actually 750 times harder to get somebody to click on a link in OpenAI, okay? And it's 30,000 times harder to get somebody to click on a website in Anthropic, okay? So this is getting even worse. Like, this 30,000 times, I just looked at the statistics yesterday, it's really more like 38,000 times, but I'm just trying to do some general numbers. That number's climbing constantly because people trust AI more and more and more. They're using AI more, and so as they trust the results of AI more, this is going to get exponentially harder, right?
So what we're saying is we go put in a prompt, and we're going to get an answer, and there might be a little link. So what's the probability of yours being the link at the end of the answer?
Yep.
That's what
we're looking at. Yep. And if you're not in the answer, and you're in the list below the answer, your chances are 0. They're zip, right? So there's only 3 reasons why people create websites, right? Vanity, fame, right? To become famous, right? To sell something, an item or a subscription, and that kind of leads to this next one, and that is to get rich, right? With ads or anything else.
Nonprofits do want to do education.
Okay, so yeah, my wife brought this up to me yesterday. Like, she said, well, what about public sector entities that have information sharing, and what about nonprofits that want to share information? Yet they don't really contribute to the economy, though, necessarily. So, but I totally get what you're saying. You're absolutely right. Like and I am a public sector engineer, so yeah, a lot of my customers have an obligation, right, for Public Informations Act, to kind of, give this information out. But they do pay a ton of money to get that public information out. And it's super discouraging when, they don't get any recognition for it or any, compensation for it or anything else like that.
Tracking of that the message is actually being received.
Correct. There's no feedback loop at all, right? So if no one ever really gets to a website, then what's the incentive, right? These incentives kind of go away. It's kind of like AI is creating its own self-fulfilling prophecy, because what's the fuel that fuels AI? It's actually people going to websites, right? And so if there's no websites to scrape, then they're eating their own tail. If no one gets to a website, why make it? And if no one makes a website, why are you guys here? Right? So that's kind of why I wanted to come here and talk with you guys, is like, this is a big problem, and we see this as a huge problem for everyone, right? Do you have a question? Or?
Well, a comment.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is, as an organization that has copyrighted material that's being fed into the AI and put into a snippet, it's like, is that really transformative what you've just done there, AI? Or is that just... So there's a whole set of copyright issues that really haven't been mitigated yet that are also important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, right? And then you've got, the Trump administration saying it doesn't matter if things are copyrighted, you shouldn't have to pay for them. Right? So...
Well, it doesn't matter what those fuckers say.
Right. So, and that's my point. I'm going to get to that, right? Like, it doesn't really matter, like, what they say, right? Like, what... We drive that decision, right? We make that decision. We stop people from taking things when we want to stop people from taking things. And that's part of this conversation, is empowering you guys to kind of come on board with us to fight this fight, right? Because we make this decision. Private industry makes this decision. It's not governments that make this decision. They can say whatever they want. We don't have to follow, like, what they do. And let's be honest, I would like to think most government officials would rather have the private economy police itself, right? I'm sure there's some people that don't believe that, but so what are we doing about it, right? Well, wait a minute. What about robots.txt, right? Like, doesn't robot.txt keep everyone from taking everything from websites, right? No, it doesn't, right? So it's clunky. It's hard to apply across your websites. You have to be really diligent about how you apply it. It's a guideline. It's not a requirement, right? We see these guys. I'll be honest with you. Matthew says this a lot. We see AI companies using the same techniques that Korean hackers use. Literally, they are using the same techniques to get content, right? If they run into a robot.txt file, what do? They scraped cache information from search websites to get the data anyway. Right? So the robot.txt means nothing to them, right? They'll even bounce off residential proxies so that they don't have personal liability, right? So when we see that, we take note of it. There's no penalty for not complying to a robots.txt. There's too many ways around it. We're trying to improve this, actually. If you go see this link right here, we now have what we call a content signals policy that we've developed. And what we're proposing is additional fields inside the robots.txt that are specific about what they can scrape and what they cannot, right? So right now, robots.txt is you can or you can't based on a path or a site or whatever, right? We're trying to get a little bit more granular in that by putting these signal policies in the robots.txt. Again, no one has to follow our guideline or use those flags. We're just throwing them out there, hoping that people pick up on them. And it also doesn't mean that they have to listen to them at all, right? So it's like a speed limit, right? If there's no one that's going to pull you over and give you a ticket, it's completely useless, right? So what are we doing about it? Here's the reality. AI companies have to pay for content. Full stop, right? But it has to be a level playing field, and I think that's the real message that we're getting from the AI companies. They're not opposed to this, right? But Sam isn't going to be a sucker. He's not going to stand over to the side and say, I'm going to pay, I'm going to pay you, New York Times, for your content, but no one else has to pay for your content, right? So there has to be a level playing field in this whole thing, or nothing like this ever really takes off, right? So we called Content's Independence Day on July 1st. We had a huge press release for this, and what this meant was our AI crawlers, the blocking mechanism for that was turned on as a default for 100% of our customers, right? Now, I had a bunch of public sector and nonprofit companies turn it off because they have an obligation to, they still don't know how to deal with that. But for 30% of the internet, all of a sudden, their websites became completely unscrapable, right? And that was done because, we also provided what we call an AI crawl control dashboard. So that got released at the same time, and you're able to actually manage what you're willing to allow and what you're not willing to allow based on what you're seeing in true analytics, right? So you can actually see what they're doing. We actually resurrected or actually put into use the 402 response code. So I don't know if people know what the 402 response code is. It's payments required. It was put in place as a future use response code, so no one uses it yet, and we're saying, yep, we're going to start using it. So the 402 response code, get used to it. We're going to start throwing that out whenever there's a website that's been blocked by Cloudflare's AI crawl control, right? Here's what we realized. Is this the right thing to do? We don't know. Is this the way everybody should do it? We don't know. But what we do know is that everybody came screaming to us saying that at 10,000 times, they're going out of business. And at 40,000 times, they're dead, buried, and underground, right? And nobody's doing anything about it. So we said, what we have to do is we have to do something about it. And the only way any markets get created, the only way things like this happen, is if you create scarcity, right? So you have to create scarcity or no one listens. So if there's one thing that I can say that we did, is that we made a major step towards creating scarcity. And we're hoping other people follow us in this, because we don't want to be the only ones doing this. We're hoping there's 5 other vendors that do this. We're hoping that everybody does this, right? That everybody jumps on board as recognizing what not doing anything about this is going to lead to, right? It's going to lead to, and I have a slide on that too, actually. It's coming up pretty soon. We also just announced we're launching the X402 Foundation, a nonprofit foundation to perpetuate this. So if anybody wants to join the X402 Foundation and work towards kind of standardizing, there's a lot of questions that have to be vetted out. What is the price per crawl? What model is that going to be? Who's going to set the standard, right? So we can't do this alone. This has to be developed by the web community, by the internet community, right? Go ahead.
So when I put in a prompt, and now everything is agent-based, so it sends out a bunch of agents.
Yep.
Or does it?
Yeah.
Is it actually doing real-time scraping, or is it pre-scraped and it has an index, let's say ChatGPT,
Yep.
with all the pages, and it's pulling it up from its index? Is it scraping in real time? It's actually hitting my website?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and then here's the other part I'll add to that. Like, agents are easy, right? Because agents are very, very easily identifiable, right? So we think that's the easier part of the equation. We think that agents are so easy to spot and so easy to manage that we'll be able to go directly and meaningfully back to anybody that is using an agent and say, like, you need to pay for doing this. And there will probably be, and I'm just spitballing here, but I think there's going to be a different model for agents because there's nobody trying to hide that they're using an agent, and there's no deception involved in that kind of a process, right? So we feel like that's the easier side of the equation. It's where they're not using really clearly defined registered agents, cryptographically identified or otherwise, right? And we're trying to figure that out, right? So the business side of this, like the booking your travel or making changes in your bank accounts and things like that, we feel like that's the way easier side of the equation. It's we could police that and we can help people police that, right? But it's everything else that we don't know about that's the hard part, right?
Hang on, follow
Yeah.
up. So it's the other side of the equation. If agents are one side, the other side is when they're training the model and they're just scraping everything.
Yes, learning.
And there's nothing else. It's really just those two.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. And then real people.
Right.
Yeah. So what happens if this works? We have some really good examples of how this works, right? Whether you want to directly correlate that or not. We've seen it play out. When there's a healthy market and people are allowed to participate in this market and it's a level playing field, then those that have the best content get paid for it and they succeed, right? So, you pick which streaming provider you pick based on the content, right? And you're willing to pay whatever that cost is to get that content because you want that content, right? Like, I don't subscribe to HBO Max. Well, I'm going to have to because I want to watch Peacemaker. But like, when I want that content, I'm willing to pay for it so that I can get that content. So we do have evidence that this absolutely works, right? Small independent providers, we're going to have those small independent providers that are going to have really awesome content, right? They should be compensated too. So this can't be about who has the most money, right? Because if it were about who has the most money, then we know who would win. And that would be, tragic as well, right? We have a lot of acknowledgement that this is something that everybody wants to do on both sides, right? We've got Amazon just brokering this massive deal with the New York Times. We have OpenAI brokering multiple deals, right, with Wall Street Journal, New York Times, everyone else. So these examples are out there. We're willing to pay for content, whatever that price is set at, right? Like, just tell us what that price is, and we're willing to pay for it. They're not pushing back on it.
It's the 10, but New York Times is both suing and collaborating with OpenAI.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They're suing for the period of time before they were collaborating.
That is something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Copyright violations happen.
Yeah, it happened. Yeah, so they have to get money for that.
It seems like a Disney movie. I don't know.
Yep. And again, I'll repeat this. Everyone's supportive of this, just no one wants to be the sucker, right? So and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. OpenAI, they are playing by the rules. Like, I'm going to show you guys some tools where you can kind of look at this whole telemetry data that we see. They're identifying their unique agents and their purposes. They're cryptographically signing them. They're following robots.txt. They're doing everything right. Like, OpenAI is the good guy. They are doing everything right. Anthropic is not. Right? So, like, there are some AI companies that are following the rules and are willing to do the right thing. Right? Obviously, any Chinese AI not following the rules, right? DeepSeek. We actually warned them about 6 months ago that we were going to block them entirely as a bad bot. We were just going to classify them as a bad bot, not as any meaningful data at all. And they backed off. They backed off really, really heavily. They went from, behaving as poorly as Anthropic to barely doing any scraping at all for a period of time. So they've slightly ratcheted up now. They're coming out of the cave. But for a while there, they just stopped doing everything. So it does work, right? What if we don't do this? So here's the Black Mirror version of what we talked about, right? It's not hard to imagine. This is not about journalists, artists, news organizations, content creators going away, right? That's not what we're looking at. It's about everybody working for an AI company, right? So instead of, the model that we have now where, if you're conservative, you go watch Fox News. If you're not conservative, you watch, another station. If you're in Europe, you watch BBC. If you're in China, you watch China's sources, right? Like, that just shifts. It's now just an AI company that represents your same demographic, right? So and we talked about this earlier about, as AI gets more and more advanced, is it going to need a reseller to buy stuff for you? No, it's going to place an order directly to a supplier, and it's going to bypass a storefront and get that shipped directly to your door, right? Is it going to need a hosting company to host a website? No, it's just going to write its own platform and its own ability to host websites, and it's going to upload that code to its own content and provide it, right? So that's the Black Mirror vision, is that we've got 5 giant AI companies that rule our lives, essentially. Everything that we do is dictated by what we see from these AI companies, right?
How different is that from conservatives watching Fox News? How different really is it?
Well, but I think we all agree that's wrong as it sits, right? Like, we have to do something about that too, right? So I think if we just don't want, I think AI there's some limit to how far that can go. Like, there's no limit as far as how AI can go, right? AI will take that paradigm and will shift it even further out, right? And there's not a lot of caring about the impacts of the growth of AI right now. Everybody's in it for the money and the market share, right? So while that's happening, you're not seeing a whole lot of concern. We talked about this earlier too. Like, the traditional people like Google that we thought were fighting for the sustenance of the internet are sadly no longer really fighting for what's right, because they have a stake in the progress of how things are going. So it's really unfortunate. And at our last kickoff for the year last year, Matthew said, we may be one of the only companies left standing that has any power to fight against this thing, but that's the right thing to do, and we should do it, right? So again, we need healthy markets, lots of buyers and sellers, lots of them. This can't be about who has the most money, right? This has to be a robust and healthy marketplace, or it's not going to work. And the first thing that the biggest factor is, again, scarcity, right? We have to create this scarcity or no one's going to listen. And so that's what we're doing. So I wanted to show you some of these tools. I mean, there's some marketing stuff in here. Like I said earlier, we are a network that sits in front of your website, so we do filter traffic through it and then apply services to it. So we're an extension. We become your edge. So your edge just gets pushed up. Think of it as we are the gated community around your neighborhood, right? So if someone can't get past your gates, they're never going to get to your front door. That's the whole concept, right? Couple statistics. I'm just leaving this for the slide when we distribute it. When a new exploit comes out, it takes 22 minutes for it to be used in an attack. So that's another testament towards human intervention. We will see live attacks morphed from a new exploit in less than 22 minutes. So phishing is still the #1 initial attack vector, so if you guys aren't watching your email traffic, you're probably wrong. And We've seen a massive increase in API traffic, obviously, front ends, mobile apps, everything else like that, so that's going to become the norm. 33% of our attacks that we see now are API-specific attacks against API endpoints. So I wanted to show you this Cloudflare Radar. It's called radar.cloudflare.com, and I was going to share this for you. So Cloudflare Radar is an exposure of all of our telemetry data to the public. So everything that we see, you can see in here, and you can look up websites, you can do research on IP addresses, you can leverage what large corporations pay a lot of money for threat intelligence in this dashboard. So it's available to the public, you guys can go do your own research. One of the things that's really cool about this is the AI Insight page. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, but this crawl purpose here, this is what we were talking about before. What's the reason why AI is touching your website? 76% of the time it's for training. So 76% of the time, 17% of the time it's for search, 5.4% is actual real user interaction, and that's it. So if you want to know like what that equates to, real versus not real traffic to your actual websites. For Anthropic, it'll hit your site 25.6 thousand times for every one real query you get. That's the average, right? For OpenAI, it's 601 to 1. For Microsoft, 37.6 to 1. For Google, 5.6 to 1, right? So that's, again, kind of feeding what we're just talking about before, is that this is the kind of traffic we're seeing to websites that is different than it ever was before, right?
Okay, I'm kind of not getting what that's actually telling me.
Okay.
It's going to touch my website 36,000 times. Why is it doing it so much?
Because it's all automated and it's on a routine, right? And so there's routines that we see that just run constantly. They're just constantly combing across, and we see, I think I mentioned earlier, like akin to Korean hackers, right? This isn't just looking at your sitemap and like combing the pages. They actually are using AI to guess path structures, guess your operating systems and your content delivery systems, and they're using wildcard searches to actually try to find paths that you haven't shown in your sitemaps. So that effort, that because they're brute forcing your website, like is this 25.6 thousand hits on your site, they're trying to see where you made a mistake and you left something open and there's something they can grab that's meaningful to them.
Just think about it, they can determine it's a Drupal site. All they have to do is node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4.
Yep.
And they will get every engagement per site. Half of them will 404. We still pay for 404s.
Yep.
404 is expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Right? 404s are very expensive. And so this is what they're all doing. And it's because we've told them that it's free and it's easy. That's why. There's no consequence for this, right? No one's screaming back at them saying, hey, you hit my site 25,000 times in the last 3 minutes, right? No one's saying that to them.
Actually, I did. I told an API once they were hitting our site, and they actually responded with a block.
Oh, did they? Well, you're the exception. You're not the norm, right? But that's kind of why we did what we did. That's why we put this here. So let me jump into my lab here, and I'll show you. Well, the internet's a little bit shaky here, I think.
It's the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi is not great. But I did want to show you guys, and I know I'm running out of time, but this is kind of what I wanted to show you guys.
So are you saying that 25,000 times I looked to see if I could find the local, and when I found one, that's the query?
No. Like they're hitting everything constantly to see whether it responds. Those are all requests that your servers have to respond to. Every single one of
So
them.
there's only one response every 25,000?
No, there's 25,000 responses for every one person that went there for a real reason.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why this is not coming up. You know, one of the things I was doing earlier was, yeah, I was kind of firing up my personal hotspot so that we could kind of see if it shows up here. Let me see if I got any sort of signal here at all. It's going to take a couple seconds probably for it to catch up. Oh.
What's your extension?
Go.
Cloudflare should come out with its own cellular network.
So we do have a very SD-WAN-ish kind of offering now where we are going to let people use our middle mile. So that's going to come out pretty soon because our network is so large now. Let's see if this comes up here, but I did want to show you guys. Okay, here we go. So this is AI crawl control. This is what it looks like. So this is available to everyone, including free customers. This is available to everyone. So that's the other thing is that as a free customer, all this stuff is available to you with just limited user counts and limited domain counts. But 100%, we just made an announcement yesterday, 100% of our functionality is now going to be available to all free users. We're no longer going to gate functionality around paid plans. So paid plans will be about support. They won't be about functionality. So all this is here. So notice how I've got all the statistics on every crawler and the ability to allow or block those things based on what I think is allowable traffic. And then I'm also able to look at metrics, run reports on what they're doing, see the paths that they're accessing and what they're trying to scrape. And then the best thing is this last one, the 402 payment required setting. And then let me kind of jump out to this lab. This lab actually has payment set up. So this I wanted to show you is our first step into setting up payment. We have a partnership with Stripe. So essentially you can connect your Stripe account and your bank account, set a price, and automatically will drop money into your bank account.
Wow.
Me.
We have a remarkable amount of nonprofits and public sector companies interested in this because law does say you're able to recoup costs related to infrastructure. It's legal to do that. So, yep. So we do have a lot of public agencies really interested in this.
Okay, so you showed data on how often the bots are scraping sites versus actual humans.
Yep.
And I've already heard that websites like Reddit are losing massive traffic.
Yep.
Because of the AI summaries. Do you have any data on how much traffic is being lost to the average site of a certain size, let's say?
I know we have that data. I think this Cloudflare Radar is kind of our first kind of go at exposing that data. I think it's not quite there yet, but I think we do know what that traffic is, and we're going to be publishing that.
You can
So,
figure it out.
yeah, you can figure it out by a lot of the data that's here.
Because we saw a lot of that going on, we see stuff like that. Traffic that doesn't match your analytics. So you'll see a gap between that traffic today, and the conversion.
So anyway, that's it. That's all I had. But hope that was helpful and interesting. But you know, support us. Thanks for being a customer if you're a customer.